And Chris here is going to chair the meeting. Andy, you can introduce yourself.
I come in Tinga. oh, right. I also work on Lua too. So I work on Lua Jet and work for building network applications. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay. So please take a seat.
Yeah, why don't we have everybody sit down and then we can finish introduction.
Yep.
So
Yes.
take seats. Who are you? You too. All right. So actually, why don't we try? Let's start with you, and then we'll skip Andy since he already introduced himself.
Okay. So hello, I'm Etienne. I am part of the Lua community, and I am finishing my master's in software engineering right now. And I develop an MVC framework for web development.
I am Sean. I'm a PhD student at Cook Hill University, where it was developed. I advised under Roberto, the creator of the language, and I'm the maintainer of Lua Rocks, the package manager for Lua modules.
I'm Ludovic Contes. I co-maintain Guide together with Dante Wingo and Mark River, and I also work on Gits in my spare time. I'm Julien Bonjour. I wrote Ensemble with the writer a few years ago, where we used a lot of Aloha and or Guide like I just talked about.
I'm Chris Weber. I work on, well, sometimes I contribute to Geeks, and I'm a Guile user, and I'm apparently sharing this, as I just discovered. So why don't we get into things? So this panel is labeled "The Future of Small Languages," right? So what I figure we're going to do, if everybody's okay with it, and since I'm the chair, I guess everybody will be, is we're going to alternate between questions that I, or if any of you feel like asking a question, just do it, and then questions from the audience. But I'm going to start it off with saying, what does it mean to you, so that this thing is called the future of small languages. What does that mean to you, and why, and how would you describe your language as being a small language, and what you see the future of it being within that context? Anybody feel free to jump in.
So that's exactly what I was saying outside before coming in. So small languages, so small in which context? I mean, is the implementation small? Is the API small? Is the community small? And I think we're small, in fact, in all aspects, so it doesn't really matter. So we can just think about the future of both our languages and see how they mix out.
Well, yeah, I guess. I was thinking the same. Who was it who came up with the idea for it? I think it was Piotr, who was like there just in a corner, laughing all the way through. And he kind of, picked us and put us here to discuss it. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I think it was a nice idea to get this mashup of both communities, since we're sharing the dev room for the morning and the afternoon, and we're gonna have more talks from there on. Well, I think Julian is in a position to say that both languages have a lot in common, since they're like one thing that you mentioned, like it feels like Lua was almost designed to be embedded. No, Lua was actually designed to be embedded.
Yeah.
That was like one of the design goals. It wasn't like happy accident. So I think small languages and like embeddable languages are two concepts that have to walk like very much hand in hand. Like if you have this language that's designed to be embedded, it cannot be like a huge language, right? So this leaves lots of design questions open about where to cross the line between like having lots of features versus keeping it small. And well, I think this opens up a very interesting design space. I'm surprised that there are not more languages, trying to work on this design space, because we have lots of similar languages going for the same kind of Perl, Python, Ruby, world. And then in the tiny core embeddable languages, you hear about Lua, you hear about Guile, and you'll hear about not much else.
I think one of the part of the small word is that compared to Python, for example, you can embed Python, but when you install Python, you have to install a huge standard library, which is not something that exists in Lua. So it makes Lua very easy to embed, so you don't have to ship a lot of file or Python file or Lua file that you repeat to a standard library where everything is embed. So what I mean, that's one of the pros is it's very small, it's easy to embed, and becomes a lot of nothing. But it really depends on what more you want to do in your program and what you are embedding for the first place. I think that's one small language. I'm not sure how it is with Guy nowadays, like, is that like a huge standard library or not at all?
Guile is a pretty significant size standard library, right? And like it's kind of interesting because we talked about this earlier this morning. There was discussion about how Guile kind of started as a language to be embedded, right? And now is kind of shifting in a different direction. Which is interesting to me. Maybe one of you would like to discuss about where Guile had been historically, as opposed to maybe where it's going as in terms of being an embedded versus a not embedded language. Is that something either of you would like to pick up?
On the one side saying that with my experience with Lua, it is a tangible thing that it is small. Like it's nice. Type make and the thing builds in less than a minute. It's got everything together and it's a small body and it feels very nice to me. And that's the way in which I appreciate it. At the same time, on the Scheme side, small language has always been. I've always thought of it as a barrier in some way because there's a mystique around Scheme that it's just this small thing, and people have been like, well, this is a small language, and if you make any change to it, or if you add a particular facility for data types, or if you make this or that, it's no longer a small language, but in reality, I'm just trying to write some programs to get some stuff done. So I think, to an extent, it's a narrative artifact. It's like, we are a small language, and we can't actually extend our domain in these various ways. And well, like Guile is a product of our labor and our interests, and I think it's been extending, in a kind of large way, actually, like towards a more capable language. Well, remaining small in some ways, but I don't think we can fairly call it that now. I think it was a thought.
Yeah, I think back to your question, I think Guy back in the day, in the 1.8 days, which was several years ago, was very much oriented towards being embedded. Pretty much in the same way you would embed, maybe not Lua, but rather Python, because it's still a shared library that you link against. But we've shifted from that to something which is a regular language where you can actually write much more code in it because it's faster and because it has a larger standard library as well. And so, yeah, you can still use it for embedding, but we hope to make it such that you can write directly your application in it and only resort to C as a last resort.
Well, I think the embeddable part does not exclude the part of being used as a general language. Well, you can't take a huge language and embed it, but if you have a small language that it's used for embedding, if you have a nice packet management, if you have community making modules, you can pack things and do general use programming. And this is what I'm trying to spend more time doing in Lua, and I think it can go great with that. But Lua has a barrier as well. So we're saying that that has this Scheme mystique that acts like a barrier, and Lua has this other side, which is the opposite side, which is being seen as a toy language. So they both can repel users in completely different ways, and so you need to figure out how to get around this and at this different group of programmers.
I think at some point the misconceptions of it, due to it being like a tiny language, made it seem like, to some people that might be like, I think like toy language is a bit too strong, but
Well, I've heard that.
you've heard that? Well, so but what can you say? Like, if you get like a 250K tarball, right? It's not gonna. It can't be a real language inside.
It's free.
It's
free, you go for it.
Yeah, it's free and it's 250K. Come on, it's gotta be like.
That's serious.
Yeah. So, but the thing is that it's interesting to hear like that the vibe I'm getting from you guys is that like as the question of the future of the small language is that the future of Guile is that not to become such a small language anymore and become like a normal language. But from the vibe that I get, both from the Lua team, the developers of the language, and the community, is that the future of Lua, on the other hand, in that way we will diverge, because the future of Lua is to remain small. Because there's a lot of people like working on like IoT, like really embedded devices and things like that, and the core developers, the designers of the language, my advisor, they are insistent in keeping the Lua core really small. You know, the things that Julian complained about, you know, that there was like lots of stuff missing, they will remain missing from the language core. You know? And so the future that, I don't know if the future that's going to be, but the future that I like to see, and the same thing that Tim was talking about, the future that we would like to see was that the Lua language remains small, but that the ecosystem around it would grow over time. You know? So that, because more and more we see people doing exactly the same as Julian said. So instead of embedding Lua, they start by embedding Lua and they like it, work with it, embedded in some project. And then eventually they want to write like the whole application if possible in Lua because they like it. And if there are enough modules around, you know, and if it's easy, if it's just like one command away to get like, okay, so I need Pango now. Okay, Lorox install Pango. You know, now I need XCB, Lorox install XCB. If it's just one command away, then it doesn't matter if it came along with your, you know, because the Python package is like 70 megabytes, the source code tarball. You know, so it comes with the whole kitchen sink, right? But if the kitchen sink is like one command away, it doesn't matter if it came with the original tarball or not. You know, so I guess that's the future that we would like to see Lua going.
Which is really a good trend with most languages. Like from what I heard in Python, I don't want to add anything in the library anymore. There's a lot of things missing in the library because I do have things like for HTTP, but not this protocol. So pushing a barrier, I mean, a limit where what you put or not. When your community grows, it becomes to be a real problem because you don't. I mean, you say yes at the beginning because you have a very few contributions. Because the more you get, the bigger your community grows, and the more you will have, and you will have a problem to say, no, I don't. We stop there. And why? It's why there's this and not this, and there's one library. It's a real problem. So having a policy from the beginning say nothing. You can say very easy, like I said, with just one command is. I think it's a very good policy. You can keep it relaxed for a long time.
Yeah, well, the policy of another barrier that say that what comes in and what doesn't in the Lua standard library is a very strict one that's related to portability, because the source code of the core Lua is ANSI C. It's like it's all written in C89. So if it's something from the standard C library that's only in C99, they will not put it in the language. You know, if it's like POSIX stuff, they're not going to put it in the language. They made one exception. The Lua core source code has one exception that breaks this rule, which is loading dynamic modules, because there's no like DLL or SO modules loading in the language. Because and they made this one exception because with this one exception you can load everything else you need.
So we said we're gonna take well, I said that we're gonna switch back and forth. So do we have a community, or do we have an audience member who wants to ask a question? Yes, okay.
Speaking about small languages in terms of embedding, what would you say are language features that are required for a language to be successful and useful?
I can take this in the sense of the features which I find successful and useful in my embedding environment, and that is the FFI in LuaJIT.
Wait, can you define FFI? Because not everybody knows what that
It's
is.
the ability to call out to C functions, to do, there's a syscall library as well.
So FFI stands for Foreign Function Interface, in case you're not
Sorry.
Yeah.
Which enables me to punch down, to write the whole application in Lua and just punch down to C when I need to, instead of writing the core C and then calling out to Lua. The bit operations, and then being fast, having a good magnification.
So back to asking questions again from.
One question.
Oh, okay, sure. We'll ask.
The most scary thing for me with respect to small languages, but I'm attracted to small languages. But it's of course if my program depends on a small language, like won't it go away? code, what's the support? Will it still be there? Or will I have to step in to support the language?
So I'm guessing you're taking small as in the small community, right? Or
Yes.
Yes, I mean that's a risk.
Well, Lua has been around doing fine for over 20 years, and it hasn't gone away yet.
Both Lua and Guile have
Yeah,
both
but
been around
they
for a
were
long
created
time,
about
right?
the same time, so 92, 93, right?
Yeah.
Speaking for me, there was a time that Guile was quite a scary thing to depend on for us.
It's an issue.
It's
Yeah.
looking good now, but
It's looking better, but yeah, but still not a great situation in that regard.
So one thing that's been brought up a couple of times already, and I'd like to hit it, is like a pain point in many ways for common languages, and pain points are great to bring up on panels. We mentioned there was multiple times that like the core of the language should maybe be small. How much should you put in your standard library? And how much should be in external libraries? And of course, the moment that you start tossing the external libraries thing into the mix, and the reason why Python in many ways had so much stuff in a standard library for ages is because of the challenge of having like package management, right? So what are your views on package management? Should languages be taking this on? Like languages do your package management, or like each language should have its own, or should it be, you know, more like up to the distribution, or what's your views? I imagine that at least one person will have some strong opinions.
I do have strong opinions on that. Well, the thing is that I haven't already been in both sides of the package management dilemma. Because before being involved with BloRocks, I was involved with Global Linux, with Linux distribution. So I've been like the upstream guy and the downstream guy, you know, and have been then like, and have like fought fights in both sides, I think. So the thing is, conceptually I would agree that package management is an operating system problem. You know? So let's make up OS packages and be done with it. That will be a lot more consistent, and you know, life would be wonderful. But I've come to believe that that's just not feasible. For one reason, that's scale, and basically scale and portability. Because if you look at the actual package managers, you know, I've done research on this. I'm gonna kind of recite part of a paper and and the thing is that if you look at the numbers of packages like Node.js, you know, if you look at NPM, they have like over 100,000 packages. Are they like at 1 million already? No, but
but it's something ridiculous of the kind.
No, because I'm quoting numbers for like only 2 years ago. Because because the curve goes like this. It's like it looks exponential. It's crazy, right? And around the time NPM had 100,000, like RubyGems had like 60,000. You know, so you can guess where it is now, or you can look it up. You know, there's a website like modulecounts.com. if someone wants to check out on their phone and then look at the updated numbers, the numbers are crazy. You know, the amount of modules, and then you compare that to the number of Debian packages that there are. You know, and you know all the QA that goes through to be a Debian developer and the maintainer and maintain packages and things like that. You know, we're never gonna have one. We simply cannot make Debian packages for every module of every language. And then a lot of those modules, they will also work on Windows, and they also work on the Mac. You know, and you know, so either you do this work like, it's not like doing 3 times, because then you have to do for every Linux distro. Right? So it's a lot of replicated work. So language-based package managers are a way of factoring this complexity, you know, in per language slices, instead of doing like per OS, because first doing it per OS just won't cut it because of an argument of scale. So,
I'd like to make a comment on what remains in the core and what is external, because I think no matter how huge the core is, you're still gonna have stuff missing. So to need external modules. If you're gonna use the language as a general use language, if you're gonna use it like that, it doesn't matter. Like, it might matter, but like the general use, is most certainly gonna need the external modules, no matter what size the core already is. And obviously, if you have community contributed modules, you have issues of which module do I pick. So in Lua, we don't have classes, right? So we have modules that are lower rocks for getting that. So if you want classes, you go lower rocks install, and then you have to pick one of the dozens of libraries because everyone decides to write their own class library, and then we don't know which class, which module do we pick. We pick this one, that one. Which module is the best module? We can't know. But the thing is, if by any chance this was in the core, we couldn't guarantee it was the best module either.
This is happening in other languages now. I guess in Python there's a situation where there's like an HTTP module that's the one in the standard library, and the official recommendation is don't use it.
Yes.
Get the other one from the package
People use
manager.
external modules to replace modules of the core the whole time already. So
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I have sort of a strong opinion, maybe, I don't know. But I also get the two viewpoints, because as a guide developer, I think it's, I mean, language package managers are just awesome, because they allow your users to publish and use packages on whatever operating system they're using. And that's just great. But then as a distro person, I think, you know, per language package managers are just crap. So I'm a bit schizophrenic, but I mean, it doesn't compose well. If you have to manage applications written in a bunch of languages, or if you have several applications using different languages and you have to use several package managers, NPM, Go, what's the name of the anyway,
Yeah.
you get what I mean? If you have to use like 10 package managers, which is not uncommon, I think, these days, that's really painful for you as a user, and you cannot really, you know, you have different tools. You cannot really say my configuration contains exactly these packages, because each package manager cares only about its own very little realm, and so that's painful. So what we've been trying to do in Gix so far, but again, there's obviously a scalability issue, is to semi-automatically import as many packages as we could, at least for important packages from PyPy, from Pran, Cpan, and so on. And yeah, it works pretty well so far, but obviously we cannot just import everything. That's not going to work. There's also a related problem with, if you look at traditional distros like Azure, there's a lot of editorial work, so to speak. So they make sure that everything is always consistent and always works perfectly. Whereas if you look at things like NPM, for instance, you cannot reach the 1 million package number without, you know, just letting people push everything.
The vast majority of packages on NPM are proprietary because they don't have any license whatsoever, for example.
Yeah, that's an example. So as a user, I really like the editorial work which is done by distros like this. So.
Yeah, let's go to another user. I'm going to go in the back, and we'll get you. Yep, you.
So all of your languages have de facto implementations. And the thing happening today is it seems like every company is making their own language. You have Go, Rust, Swift, and all that stuff. How will you compete with that in the future?
Lua has been somewhat adopted. Well, the logic has been somewhat adopted by Cloudflare. So I think it depends. I mean, if it's good technology, someone will need it and someone will support it. So we might not run into the issue. Is this for logic specifically, not for the vanilla Lua?
In a more abstract way, like other languages, developments in other languages is a source of anxiety. Like you don't have to feel that anxiety. That's just something that like the whole industry is provoking in you. Like I think just one person doing good work on a language is quite sufficient. You know, like one person can make a huge difference in any particular field, and you don't have to worry about what other people are doing. You just have to keep at it with relative constancy. So it's not a source of anxiety, I feel. You know, but I do like to steal from other languages, especially racket. Steal from racket all the time.
Well, and then Mike Paul did like speaking about like the huge impact of one person. Mike Paul did beat the Google team that made V8 and won the benchmarks, and he was a single person.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, actually less than that. So we're gonna accept one more question from the audience, and then we're going to end up switching off with one, and it's gotta be short. And then I'm gonna have one last close-up thing.
Mine is a joke.
Okay, sure. Who's short? Who's got a short question? You in the back.
So Scheme R7 report has this dual track, so there's like the large language and the small language. I was wondering how you feel about that, and whether that protects it as a small language or endangers the small language, or you know, what are your thoughts?
Not really interested in R7. That's the short answer, and the long answer is much longer. So.
Yes, the same for me. I think it's probably a mistake to distinguish small language and big language.
Okay, so we're gonna get to the wrap-up part. I'm gonna ask that each one of you, we're gonna start at the end and work our way this way, and then Julian's gonna have a complexity since I think you're in both. You've done some stuff in both. So you get to do one for each. But I want each one of you to speak about the other language and say something that you wish that you admire about the other language's stuff. So I always think this is an interesting exercise. So something that the Lua developers think that the Guile people have well, and then something the Guile developers think the Lua people have well. All right.
I'm gonna go really simple. A nice looking website that is attractive. I guess people interested and yeah, that is actually quite nice. That looks pretty. Yeah.
There are many things I admire about Lua, and Lua Rocks is one of them.
Well, one thing I'm going to say about the Gal community is the Gigs project, because, coming from my governance background, has a lot of commonalities with Nix OS, with Nix and Nix OS. So, you know, it's really great to see like people like giving like a fresh of breath air, you know, and a new wave of energy into this idea. I'm really excited to see that.
I've never actually written Lua code, but what I do admire is Luajit and the implementation itself, which I've read about and is really impressive.
What I do like about Lua is that the code size is pretty small, and I feel like I almost can understand it. So I feel smart when I read Lua's code. I can understand the programming language. And what I do like about Guy is that I don't understand anything about how it works. When I read blog posts from Andy, it's like, wow, I wish I could understand that.
Yeah, you and me both. So I think that wraps up our panel. Thanks.